Welcome back, you. Okay, so you shared a really compelling, sometimes pretty unsettling collection of material with us this time.
Yeah, definitely.
We're diving deep into true crime, everything from those really bizarre unsolved disappearances, the ones that feel almost unreal,
Right.
to notorious killers, and even trying to get into the psychology behind it all.
And the sources you sent over, the podcast clips, they cover a lot of ground. Specific cases, but also those bigger, darker themes within true crime.
Exactly. So our mission, like always, is to sort of wade through all this fascinating, sometimes grim stuff and pull out the core narratives, the key insights for you.
Basically, we do the heavy lifting so you get the main points, maybe those aha moments, without getting totally bogged down.
Yeah, shortcut through the complexity. And we know you all come with different levels of background knowledge.
Right, so we'll keep it accessible, but still, offer some real depth.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with those unsolved disappearances. Just baffling. You highlighted a few, and the first one, Brendan Swanson, it just grabs you, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, the whole scenario is just eerie.
Yeah.
Late night drive, car in a ditch, calls his parents for help.
And vanishes while on the phone.
Exactly. It shows how vulnerable someone can be, even in a seemingly normal situation, and, well, how tough searches can be with zero physical evidence.
The details are chilling. It's like 1:54 a.m., May 14th, 2008. He calls his folks, says he thinks he's near Linden, Minnesota.
But he wasn't?
No. His car's found near Taunton, like 25 miles away. And he's on the phone with his dad for 47 minutes walking. Says something about fences hearing water.
And then that ending.
Yeah, just suddenly, oh, shit. Then the line goes dead.
The contrast is stark, isn't it? A normal call, someone annoyed about a ditch then, silence. The long call suggests he wasn't, in immediate panic, not initially anyway.
And the search, huge. Volunteers, dogs, helicopters, dive teams searching the river.
Cadaver dogs even got a scent trail to the Yellow Medicine River, but then it just stopped. Abruptly.
Which makes that main theory drowning a bit shaky, right?
Well, yeah. The river's the obvious place to look, but the scent stopping like that. And no remains found despite all the searching. Sonar, too. It doesn't quite fit perfectly.
Exactly. If he drowned, where is he? His clothes?
Yeah.
Wallet? Phone? Nothing.
Just gone.
So you get these other theories, exposure, some other accident, foul play even, but nothing solid, no proof.
And this case actually led to a change in the law in Minnesota, Brandon's law.
Right, yeah, tell us about that again.
It basically means law enforcement has to take a missing adult report seriously right away. They can't just wait or assume the person left voluntarily.
Because initially, his parents faced delays, didn't they? They were told, oh, he's an adult, he can just disappear if he wants.
Exactly. So the law acknowledges that adults can be vulnerable too, and disappearances need prompt investigation.
It's just a haunting case.
Yeah.
How does someone vanish while talking on the phone? And what did, oh shit, mean? Those questions just stick with you.
That last phrase, followed by nothing. It leaves this really deep sense of unease, so many possibilities you just can't know.
That feeling, the unanswered questions, it reminds me a bit of the next one, though it's much older. The Hinterkaifeck murders in Bavaria. So brutal, so strange.
Oh, absolutely. An isolated farm, 1922, 6 family members just murdered with a pickaxe. It's incredibly disturbing.
And still unsolved after a century.
Which just adds to the creepiness.
You had Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, her 2 kids, little Cecilia, and Joseph.
And the new maid, Maria Baumgartner. She'd only just arrived that day.
The whole family wiped out.
And the way it likely happened, investigators think 4 were lured to the barn first, then the killer went into the house for the other 2, in their beds.
That's just real calculation, doesn't it? Chilling intent.
But it's the stuff after the murders that's almost weirder.
Yeah. Signs of life on the farm for days. Smoke from the chimney, the animals were fed, the dog was barking, neighbors saw movement.
It really suggests the killer might have stayed there for days. With the bodies.
Yeah.
That idea, the killer living among the victims, it elevates it beyond just brutality. It's psychologically terrifying. Suggests a level of detachment.
Wow. And then the clues they did find. Footprints in the snow leading to the house, but not away.
Right.
Missing keys, noises in the attic before the murders, the dog acting weird, Victoria withdrawing money.
It's like a collection of puzzle pieces, but they don't fit together to make a clear picture. Each one hints at something, but nothing conclusive.
And no forced entry when the neighbors finally went in on April 4th.
Right, which adds another layer of mystery.
The investigation back then pretty much hit a dead end. Lots of interrogations, rumors flying incest, secret lovers, money disputes.
And even modern forensics, DNA tests later on, they couldn't crack it.
It just shows the limits, maybe? Or how careful the killer was.
There was that story about German police students who supposedly figured out a prime suspect but kept the name secret.
Yeah, out of respect for living relatives.
Yeah.
Intriguing, but doesn't really give closure, does it?
No, not at all.
It's the basic terror of it. How can something like this happen? Your home, your family, that violation of safety. It's a horror that just lasts.
Definitely. Hinterkaifeck is just this stark reminder of, well, how vulnerable we can be and how powerful the unknown is when it comes to the really dark side of human behavior.
That unsettling feeling carries over to another case, Blair Adams. Different vibe, though. More like a sense of impending doom.
Oh, for sure. You can almost feel the promotion of danger. His behavior leading up to it in July 96, withdrawing all his money, cash, gold, jewelry.
Crossing the border into the U.S.
All because he thought someone was trying to kill him. It sets this really tense backdrop.
And then his body is found in a motel parking lot in Knoxville, Tennessee, the state he was in. Ripped clothes, socks inside out, torn shoelaces. Suggests a fight, right?
It does. But then his other belongings, cash, gold, jewelry, were found neatly arranged nearby, which is odd.
Very odd. And he died from internal injuries, a beating. The fatal blow was to the stomach. No gun, no knife.
That contradiction signs of violence, but carefully placed belongings opens up possibilities. Was it a sudden attack? Something more prolonged? Almost ritualistic? Hard to say.
And adding to the strangeness, that 911 call from a motel worker who found him described as too calm, like mechanical, no panic.
Yeah, the contrast between how Adams died and that caller's tone is really striking. Makes you wonder, though it's probably nothing, did they know something? It's just off.
So you're left with all these questions. Was his paranoia real? Who was following him, if anyone? And what about that weird 911 call? It just doesn't resolve.
Exactly. No clear motive, bizarre circumstances. It keeps people guessing. A really perplexing one.
That frustration, things not adding up, it connects to our final disappearance case here. Faith Heshbeth. Just tragic. A promising young student.
Yeah, truly heartbreaking. Young woman, bright future, UNC Chapel Hill student. Life just brutally ended in her own apartment.
The timeline is chillingly normal at first. September 6th, 2012. Study, then out to a bar briefly with her roommate, Karina, back around 3 a.m.
And then Karina finds her later that morning.
The scene. Faith dead in the bedroom, blood everywhere. She'd been bludgeoned with a liquor bottle. And that note.
The handwritten note. I'm not stupid bitch jealous.
So direct, yet still ambiguous. Who wrote it? What exactly did it mean in context?
And Karina's 911 call. She's obviously distraught, trembling, hesitant. It says blood everywhere. But then she mentions this detail. Stuff in the room that wasn't here before.
That is interesting. Stuff that wasn't there before. Suggests the scene was altered beyond just the violence itself. Maybe something the killer left or brought. And some people thought they maybe heard a male voice in the background of the call. Never confirmed, but it adds to the unease.
Yeah, that call is just raw emotion. But those little details, the hesitations, the possibility of other sounds, investigators must have picked that apart. It's primary evidence, but puzzling.
And years went by. No arrest. Then finally, 2021, Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares is arrested. DNA match.
Right, so there's some resolution identifying a suspect.
So the motive, his actual connection to Faith, still kind of murky, isn't it?
It often is, even after an arrest. Understanding the why can take time or remain unclear. And yeah, that 911 call still echoes with those unanswered questions.
It really brings us back to how those initial moments, those calls for help, can become such strange central clues. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. A different kind of disturbing killers who hide behind a mask of charm.
Yeah, this is really unsettling territory because it shows how easily evil can be disguised, how easily we can be fooled by a pleasant surface.
Ted Bundy, he's the poster child for this, right?
Yeah.
Smart, good-looking, articulate, involved in politics, psychology.
Absolutely the opposite of the monster stereotype. Bundy completely changed how people thought about serial killers, showed that looks can be incredibly deceiving,
He weaponized his charm, faked injuries to get victims to help him,
exploited that natural human instinct to help someone who seems vulnerable.
manipulated people constantly, even in court. And women were drawn to him, even during his murder trial. It's staggering.
His ability to mimic normalcy, to fake vulnerability, it was key to his manipulation. It really speaks to the power of that deception.
The scary part is, it seems like his whole life was the mask.
And that's the core chilling insight, isn't it? That the charming exterior was just a performance, meticulously crafted to hide the reality, a profound warning about judging by appearances.
And that's not just men. Joanna Denny in the UK, mother of two, people said she was lively, fun. Then she flipped, went on this shocking killing spree in 2013. 3 men dead, 2 others attacked.
Denny's case really challenges those gender stereotypes around extreme violence. The descriptions of her personality beforehand just clash so violently with the brutality of her actions and what she said afterwards.
Her motive, she said, I killed to see how I would feel. Then I did it again, just cold, no remorse, bragging about it, wanting to kill again.
And she manipulated accomplices to help her.
Yeah.
Her case is just this stark illustration that evil doesn't always look monstrous. It can hide behind normalcy, even charisma. Her manipulation of others is another key trait we often see.
It makes you think about psychopathy, that blend of surface charm and complete lack of empathy, mimicking emotions they don't feel. Dangerous predators hiding right there.
Yeah, that's often at the core,
Yeah.
a fundamental inability to connect with or understand others' feelings. Combined with that superficial charm and manipulation, it's a dangerous mix. Mimicking emotion is how they get by socially.
And we as people, we tend to trust likable people, right?
Right.
We might even explain away little red flags.
It's human nature. We want to connect, to trust. And skilled manipulators exploit that. We give the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes that's disastrous.
And the media sometimes gets obsessed with these charming killers' personalities, doesn't it? Almost glorifies them in a weird way.
That's a real danger. The focus on the killer's persona can overshadow the victims, the real human cost. It can create this unhealthy fascination.
Which is why it's so crucial to remember the victims, their lives, their families. They're not just part of the killer's story.
Exactly. We have to keep the focus on the harm done, the lives lost. Remember them, not just the person behind the mask.
It's a chilling thought that the most dangerous people might seem the most normal. Okay, let's turn to something even more deeply disturbing. Child killers. It just violates our whole idea of innocence.
It really does. It's a profound paradox, childhood, which we associate with innocence colliding with extreme violence. It forces us to question basic ideas about human nature.
Mary Bell, Newcastle, 1968. She was only 10 when she killed 2 little boys, Martin Brown, 4, and Brian Howe, 3, with a 13-year-old friend.
And the details of Brian Howe's murder, the mutilation, carving an M on his stomach, just horrific, done by a 10-year-old.
And apparently she showed no remorse, boasted about it, diagnosed as a psychopath later.
Her age, the calculated cruelty, that symbolic carving, it's deeply disturbing. And the psychopathy diagnosis so young raises huge questions about where that comes from.
Her background was terrible, though. Neglect, abuse, exploitation. It makes you wrestle with, was she a product of that, a victim herself?
Yeah.
Or just evil?
That's the agonizing question, isn't it? How much this horrific trauma shapes someone versus some inherent predisposition. It's complex. The manslaughter conviction, diminished responsibility, reflects that uncertainty.
And then James Bulger, 1993. A 2-year-old boy abducted from a shopping center by 2 10-year-old boys John Venables and Robert Thompson.
That case shocked the entire world because the killers were so young.
The horror of what they did, walking him for miles, torturing him with bricks, paint, and iron bar, leaving his body on a railway line. It's almost unthinkable.
The sheer level of violence inflicted by children that age was incomprehensible to most people. It shattered ideas about childhood innocence.
People tried to find reasons: violent video games, broken homes, bullying, neglect.
But maybe the terrifying truth is simpler. Just two boys who decided to kill someone. The lack of a clear, understandable motive beyond just doing it is maybe the most disturbing part.
Youngest murder prosecution in modern English history. Global shock. And then the ongoing debate about their release, rehabilitation, especially Venables being rearrested later.
Yeah, the Venables situation highlights how difficult rehabilitation can be in these cases. What's the long-term impact? Can society reintegrate them safely? Really tough questions.
So psychologically, what's going on? Early signs of psychopathy, the impact of abuse and trauma.
Research points that way. Early trauma can definitely impact brain development, increase risks for antisocial behavior. Sometimes that might interact with underlying tendencies towards psychopathy. It's a tragic combination.
It just leaves you feeling deeply uncomfortable. Challenges everything you think you know about childhood, innocence, evil.
Precisely. These cases force us to confront that the capacity for extreme violence isn't limited by age, and the origins are complex and, frankly, terrifying. It shakes your faith.
We mentioned 911 calls earlier with disappearances, but they pop up again as potentially crucial, maybe confusing clues in other cases too.
Absolutely. That first call, that moment of crisis, it can hold so much information. Subtle things, maybe not obvious at first, but vital later.
Like going back to Blair Adams, that reported calm, almost detached 911 call from the motel worker who found him beaten to death. It just feels wrong somehow.
Yeah, the disconnect between the violence of the scene and the reported calmness of the caller is jarring. It naturally makes you wonder, even if it's unlikely, what did they know? Why so calm? It deviates from the expected reaction.
And with Faith Hedgebeth-Carina's call, she's clearly panicked, trembling, hesitant. But that detail, stuff in the room that wasn't here before, plus the unconfirmed possibility of a voice, the call itself is like a mini mystery.
Definitely. Her emotional state seems genuine, but those specific details of potential extra sounds, investigators pore over that stuff. The call becomes this key document, but it's open to interpretation as layers to the puzzle.
It's often what's not said, isn't it? The pauses, the tone, things missing from the call. They can hint at something more going on.
That's right. Sometimes the absence of expected emotion or the inclusion of odd details can be telling. It takes careful analysis to separate genuine distress from maybe deception or just confusion.
So these calls, meant to summon help, sometimes become the very clues investigators are trying to decipher. Okay, let's turn to another dark corner. Cults and extreme beliefs, where devotion twists into something deadly.
Yeah, cults are this dangerous mix, aren't they? Ideology, charismatic leaders, manipulation of vulnerable people, often ending in violence.
The Order of the Solar Temple, early 90s, that's a really chilling one. Mix of New Age stuff, Knights Templar mysticism, promising cosmic salvation.
They tapped into that desire for meaning, for belonging. But the leaders, Dimambro and Jure, twisted it into this deadly belief system about, like an impending apocalypse that required purification.
Purification through mass suicide and murder. Those coordinated deaths in 1994, 53 members across Switzerland, Canada, France, presented as this ritual cleansing for the apocalypse. Horrifying.
The scale of it across countries shows the level of control the leaders had, how completely they indoctrinated their followers, framing murder and suicide as spiritual transcendence. It shows how belief can override basic survival instincts.
And the leaders orchestrated it all, convincing followers they were moving on to some glorious next stage. It's the ultimate betrayal.
That's a common pattern in these tragedies. Charismatic manipulators exploiting fears and vulnerabilities, creating this closed world where doubt isn't allowed, only obedience.
And then, of course, the Manson family.
Wow.
1969. Charles Manson, charismatic but deeply disturbed, manipulating all those young followers.
Manson had this uncanny ability to draw people in, didn't he? Especially young people feeling lost or disillusioned. He preyed on that, used his charisma to gain control.
His ideology was just warped. This coming race war, helter-skelter, him as some kind of messiah figure.
And leading to those incredibly brutal murders, Sharon Tate and her friends, the LaBiancas, staging the scenes to try and spark that race war he imagined. It was pure chaos.
The way he brainwashed his followers is terrifying. They seemed completely under his spell, doing these horrific things for his vision.
It's a stark example of indoctrination. How critical thinking can be eroded, replaced by absolute devotion to a leader, no matter how disturbed their ideology is.
Both cases, Solar Temple and Manson, they share those traits, don't they? Delusional beliefs, manipulative leaders preying on the vulnerable, belief turning deadly.
Yeah, they really underscore the danger of unchecked ideologies and leaders who exploit people. That slide from devotion into deadly madness is a powerful warning.
The lessons are pretty clear. The danger of twisted beliefs, how fragile our minds can be, and the destructive power of manipulators.
Absolutely. They're haunting reminders about critical thinking, skepticism, and never giving up your autonomy to one person or idea.
Okay, let's get into the psychology behind killing. That classic debate.
Right.
Nature versus nurture.
Right. This is central to criminology and psychology, trying to figure out the balance between, biological factors and environmental influences in shaping violent behavior. It's complex.
We hear psychopath and sociopath used a lot. What's the difference, generally speaking?
Well, it's debated, and the terms are sometimes used interchangeably, but generally, psychopathy is often seen as more innate, maybe linked to brain differences. Key traits are a real lack of empathy, lack of remorse, superficial charm, manipulativeness. They can often seem normal. Sociopathy is often thought to be more linked to environmental factors like severe trauma or abuse during childhood. Sociopaths might be more impulsive, prone to outbursts, have trouble forming stable relationships. They might feel some empathy but disregard it. Less calculated, maybe more erratic.
So psychopathy, more inherent lack of empathy, calculated, like Bundy, might fit that description.
Bundy's profile aligns well with many psychopathic traits: the charm, manipulation, apparent lack of remorse, and there's some suggestion of brain differences in areas related to empathy, which supports that nature aspect.
In sociopathy, more environmental roots, impulsive, maybe like Joanna Dennehy seemed more impulsive.
Dennehy's impulsivity, her emotional volatility, her troubled background. Yeah, that might lean more towards some traits associated with sociopathy, potentially linked more to her upbringing and experiences. Less calculated planning, perhaps more driven by immediate urges.
But it's usually not just one or the other, is it? It's probably a mix.
That's the current thinking, yeah. It's likely an interaction. Someone might have genetic predispositions that make them vulnerable, and then environmental factors, abuse, neglect, can act as triggers or worsen those tendencies.
You brought up Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. His horrific childhood is often seen as a major factor.
Right. His exposure to extreme violence and abuse is a powerful example of how nurture or lack thereof can contribute significantly to developing violent behavior, potentially amplifying any underlying issues.
So the environment can really light the fuse, even if the predisposition is there.
Exactly. Your upbringing, your experiences, they can shape how those biological factors actually manifest.
Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer.
Yeah.
Maybe a blend of both.
Ridgway's case seems complex that way. He showed traits like lack of remorse, which might point to psychopathy, but also had a deeply troubled upbringing. It highlights how hard it is to neatly categorize people and how multiple factors usually play a role.
It just shows the criminal mind is incredibly complex. No easy answers.
Not at all. It's a tangled web of biology, psychology, and life experiences. Still so much we don't fully understand.
Something we really need to keep in mind when we talk about these cases is the victims. It's easy to get drawn into the killer's story or the mystery.
Absolutely critical. Behind every case, every headline, there's a real person whose life was taken and families left devastated. We can't forget that.
You highlighted some names for us to remember. Samantha Koenig, 18, a barista in Alaska, full of dreams. Maychelle Moore, a loving mom who adored animals, Nicole Van Daver, someone who fought through struggles with quiet strength.
Bringing up their names, a little about who they were, is so important. Samantha's kindness, Michelle's compassion, Nicole's resilience. These aren't just statistics. They were people with lives, loves, hopes. That's the real loss.
Remembering how they lived, not just the horrific way they died, their warmth, the people who loved them.
Exactly. It restores their humanity, shifts the focus back to the actual tragedy, the hole they left behind.
Giving them back their voice, their place in the story, it feels like the most respectful thing we can do.
It really is. It honors their memory and reminds everyone of the true cost of these crimes.
Okay, let's look at something more modern now. Internet sleuths. These online communities digging into unsolved cases. Blessing or curse for the actual detectives?
Oh, it's a huge topic now, isn't it? The impact of online communities. It's definitely a double-edged sword for investigations.
Lars Mintank, the guy who vanished from that airport in Bulgaria in 2014. The internet went wild over that surveillance video of him acting erratically and running out.
Yeah, the Mittank case is a prime example. Because the video was public, everyone could analyze it. Cue endless theories about why he ran drugs, mental breakdown, running from someone.
So many theories, but still no answers about what happened to him.
And that's the problem, isn't it? You get this flood of speculation. Some might be plausible, others totally wild. It generates attention, sure, but also a mountain of noise and often misinformation.
So help or hindrance. It raises awareness, maybe throws up a potential lead, but it also creates confusion, overload, and he's still missing.
The fact that he's still missing, despite all that online attention, suggests the sheer volume of speculation can actually hinder things. It can distract from credible leads. Plus, people get emotionally invested, which doesn't always help objective analysis.
And then Elisa Lam at the Cecil Hotel in L.A., that elevator video. Wow, that went viral globally.
The Elisa Lam case had all the ingredients for internet obsession, didn't it? Bizarre video, creepy hotel with a history, mysterious disappearance. It just exploded online.
Theories were all over the place. An attacker hiding, ghosts, some kind of ritual, mental health crisis, conspiracy theories galore, videos, blogs, Reddit threads.
It was an avalanche of content. Shows how quickly these things can spread online, both the facts and the fiction.
The official ruling was accidental drowning, linked to her bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
But that hasn't really satisfied everyone online, has it?
No. The official explanation, while based on evidence, often competes with the more sensational theories that capture the public imagination. So the debate continues, fueled by online skepticism.
So again, help or hindrance. It brought attention, yes, but maybe diverted focus from real issues like mental health support or hotel safety protocols, and spread a lot of misinformation.
Yeah, the focus on the sensational might have overshadowed more important conversations in the Lamb case. That's a potential downside of unchecked online sleuthing.
So overall, internet sleuths. They can raise awareness, maybe even find something missed, but they can also really complicate things, spread rumors, bury investigators in useless tips.
It's a very fine line. Discerning good information from noise is the challenge. Ensuring online chatter doesn't derail the actual police work.
That line between speculation and evidence gets really blurry online.
It really does.
Okay, but on the flip side of armchair detectives, let's talk about the real hope offered by new technology in cracking cold cases. DNA, especially.
Yes, this is a genuinely exciting area. Advances in forensic science, particularly DNA analysis and genetic genealogy, are giving investigators powerful new tools to finally get answers in cases that's been cold for decades.
The Golden State Killer case. Joseph James DeAngelo. That feels like the turning point, right?
Yeah.
Decades of terror murders, rapes, burglaries, finally solved using genetic genealogy.
Absolutely. Identifying DeAngelo by uploading crime scene DNA to public genealogy websites was revolutionary. It showed this new approach could work, even for seemingly impossible cases. It gave hope for so many others.
The total game changer.
Definitely. It ushered in a new era for cold case work.
And we're seeing it applied elsewhere. renewed efforts on the Zodiac killer case using forensic DNA testing on old evidence.
Right. The Zodiac case has haunted investigators for over 50 years. New DNA tech, re-examining letters and evidence. There's still hope for an identification there.
Someone claimed to have cracked one of his ciphers recently too, right? And the DNA work continues.
Yeah, the cipher didn't name him, but it reignited interest. Combined with the DNA efforts, the possibility of a breakthrough remains.
And Tara Grinstead, the teacher who disappeared in Georgia in 2005, solved over 10 years later because of a DNA match leading to an arrest.
That case really speaks to persistence, doesn't it? And how crucial DNA can be, even years down the line, in finally getting justice for victims and answers for families.
Even really old cases are being looked at again. Jill Dando, the TV presenter, murdered in London in '99. Mary Jane Wilkins, murdered way back in '77. But a DNA link in 2020 led to a suspect after over 40 years.
It shows the commitment to keep trying, even when decades pass. The Wilkins case especially, finding a link after so long. It's incredible what's possible now.
And it's helping identify missing persons, too, not just solving crimes. People identified after 30 years sometimes.
Yes, the same DNA tech is bringing closure to families who've waited decades just to know what happened to a missing loved one.
There are thousands of cold cases. This technology offers real, tangible hope for justice, for answers.
It really does. The potential to solve so many long-dormant cases is immense. It offers hope to families who thought they might never know the truth.
But even with all this tech, some high-profile cases just remain baffling. They resist explanation despite massive scrutiny.
That's true. Some cases, due to complexity, lack of evidence, maybe early missteps, just seem to remain stubbornly unsolved no matter how much attention they get.
John Benet Ramsey.
Yeah.
Christmas, 1996. 6 years old. The bizarre crime scene in the basement, the garrote, the duct tape, that weird ransom note.
And the media frenzy, it was intense from day one.
Suspicion fell on the parents initially. The note was questioned, their behavior analyzed endlessly, but no forced entry. Conflicting theories. Intruder. Family cover-up.
It's a maze of contradictions, and even when DNA cleared the Ramseys later, in 2008, it didn't point to anyone else definitively. The case just stays open, full of questions.
Then the O.J. Simpson trial. 1994 murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman.
Yeah.
Huge celebrity trial.
Massive media sensation.
DNA evidence linked him. But the trial. Firm the glove.
Yeah.
Ultimately, acquittal in the criminal trial.
Despite what many saw as overwhelming circumstantial evidence pointing to guilt, the acquittal sparked outrage and remains incredibly controversial, lingering questions about whether justice was truly served.
And Madeleine McCann, the 3-year-old who vanished from a holiday apartment in Portugal in 2007.
A nightmare scenario, global search effort.
Her parents were under suspicion for a while, criticized for leaving the kids alone. So many twists and turns over the years, potential suspects, but no concrete proof of what happened.
Theories range from abduction by a stranger, trafficking rings. Recently, focus shifted to a German suspect, Christian Bruckner, but still no definitive answers. Her fate remains unknown.
What ties these cases together? Just frustration, right? Answers always seem just out of reach.
Yeah, it's that feeling of near misses, enduring ambiguity, maybe flawed investigations, media interference, maybe just a lack of that one crucial piece of evidence. They represent the limits of solving every crime.
Will we ever know what really happened in cases like these? It's the big question mark that hangs over them.
It's hard to say. Technology might still provide answers someday, but the enduring mystery suggests some questions might just stay unanswered, unfortunately.
Okay, let's shift to another dark aspect. Toxic relationships that turn deadly, so-called crimes of passion, where love or obsession curdles into violence.
Yeah, these cases are tragic illustrations of how intense emotions, jealousy, possessiveness, anger can explode, often within intimate relationships. The line gets terrifyingly blurred.
Jodi Arias, murdering her ex-boyfriend Travis Alexander in 2008. Incredibly brutal. Stabbed multiple times, shot, throat slit.
And her story kept changing, didn't it? First denial, then claiming self-defense.
But the evidence. She traveled to his house, took photos during or after the murder, her inconsistent statements.
The defense painted her as a victim of abuse, but the prosecution argued she was scorned, vengeful, obsessed after their turbulent relationship ended. Stalking behavior was mentioned too.
Yeah, the obsession seemed clear. She was convicted of first-degree murder, life in prison.
A clear case where a volatile relationship ended in extreme violence.
Oscar Pistorius, the Paralympic athlete, killing his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day 2013.
Shot her through a locked bathroom door. His claim was mistaken identity. He thought she was an intruder.
There were inconsistencies in his story, timeline issues. The prosecution argued it was intentional, fueled by anger or jealousy after an argument. There was evidence of previous arguments.
His conviction was controversial too. Initially culpable homicide, then upgraded to murder on appeal. Sentenced to over 13 years in the end.
And Shauna Grice in the UK, murdered by her ex-boyfriend Michael Lane in 2016. After she ended their relationship, he stalked her relentlessly.
And she reported the stalking to the police multiple times, right? Even got a restraining order, but he violated it. The system failed her.
Tragically, yes. His obsessive behavior escalated until he killed her. A devastating example of how stalking can turn deadly if not taken seriously enough. He was convicted of murder.
You see those common threads again. Obsession, jealousy, control, manipulation, violence erupting within relationships that were supposed to be about love.
Just tragic outcomes. And a stark reminder to be aware of those warning signs in unhealthy relationships.
Absolutely. Vigilance is key.
Okay, finally, let's touch on the ones who seemingly got away. Those infamous criminals who were never caught. The mysteries that still fascinate us.
Yeah, these are the ultimate cold cases in a way. The perpetrators who vanished, leaving behind questions and legends.
D.B. Cooper has to be top of the list for sheer audacity, right? 1971 hijacking. Demanded $200,000 in parachutes.
Jumped out of the plane somewhere over the Pacific Northwest and was never seen again.
Vanished. Most of the ransom money never recovered either, except for that small bundle found by a river years later. Countless theories about who he was if he survived the jump. Still unknown.
An enduring enigma. Pure legend now.
Jack the Ripper. London, 1888. The brutal murders in Whitechapel, the victims horribly mutilated.
Terrorized the city. Despite massive police efforts back then, he was never identified, never caught.
Dozens, maybe hundreds, of theories and suspects over the years, but nothing definitive. Who was he? Why did he do it? Still a haunting mystery.
The archetype of the elusive serial killer.
And more recently, the Long Island serial killer, or the Gilgo Beach killer. Starting around 2010, bodies discovered along the south shore of Long Island.
Mostly women involved in the sex trade, found wrapped in burlap. A pattern emerged.
But the killer's identity remains unknown, despite years of investigation. Theories about someone local, maybe even connected to law enforcement, but nothing proven.
There have been renewed efforts recently using new technology, focusing on specific suspects, but still officially unsolved.
What's the common factor here? Criminals who just disappeared, evaded capture despite everything thrown at them.
Yeah, whether through luck, careful planning, maybe investigative shortcomings, or just vanishing into thin air like Cooper, they represent that ultimate challenge to law enforcement, that frustrating lack of closure.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground. As we've seen, the world of true crime is, well, it's complex, often deeply disturbing.
It really touches on fundamental things about human nature, about society, about good and evil.
Your sources definitely gave us a wide range, baffling disappearances, chilling killers, the psychology behind it all, the impact of technology.
And it's crucial, as we said, amidst all the intrigue, to remember the real human cost. The lives cut short, the families left behind.
That's the most important takeaway, really. The stories can be captivating, even fascinating in a dark way, but the pain is real and lasting.
Absolutely. Remembering the victims is paramount.
So, thinking back over everything we've touched on from your sources, I wonder, what resonated most with you? Was there a particular case or theme that really stuck, or maybe a recurring idea that stood out?
It's worth thinking about, isn't it? Why certain stories grab us more than others. Often reflects our own fears, our ideas about safety, justice, the extremes of human behavior.
Yeah. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. And exploring all this darkness, what does it really tell us about the human condition? And what's our role in remembering these stories, remembering the victims, and maybe, just maybe, hoping for truth and justice even when the mystery seems impenetrable? Thanks for sharing these sources and joining us for this deep dive.